The 14th round of the 1997 kart season would take place at one of the best road courses in the world, Road America. The previous year's Texaco Havoline 200 had been a total fustercluck, with 15 DNFs and 5 cautions in total. It was a good race, however, and while it did have big shoes to fill, many hoped that the 97 running would be an instant classic as well. While the championship fight between leader Alex Zanardi and Paul Tracy in second was one of the biggest storylines entering the weekend, heavy rain come race day meant that most of the stories entering the weekend were thrown out the window. Rain had started early that morning, and roughly an hour before the scheduled start, the rain had gone much heavier. Thanks to the heavy rain and poor track conditions, the race start would be pushed back over 2 hours, and once the start came, the decision was made to make the start single file. Mauricio Gugelmin would start this race from the pole position, grabbing the second pole of not only the year, but his entire IndyCar career up to this point. Gugelmin's teammate Mark Blundell would start behind in second. Championship leader Alex Zanardi starts in third, while Paul Tracy was in a dreadful 15th. Hiro Matsushita would be your slowest qualifier, while Charlie Nierberg would start last after crashing in Friday qualifying. With everything set up, we can get to the start of the race. It was an even-keel start for most of the front runners, with Mauricio Gugelmin in the lead. Farther behind, however, there was trouble. It was Walter Salas stalled and spun around backwards with Paul Tracy on his roll hoop in the background. Salas had spun going through turn 1, and in a vain attempt to avoid a crash, Tracy went to the inside, and got clipped by Salas. Tracy now had a one-way ticket to the inside tire barrier, which he would hit at a bad angle before ending up on his lid. It was an incident that perfectly summarized Tracy's 97 season, a year that I've talked about in another video. Tracy would of course be out of the race, while Salas would keep going a lap down. During the ensuing yellow, another Canadian would run into trouble. It was Patrick Carpentier in the pits with a mechanical issue. It was originally a misfire, but after that was fixed, he lost 4th gear. This gearbox issue would prove to be terminal. The race would get restarted on lap 4, with Gugelmin in the lead still. The matters through the field were fairly uniform for the first few laps after the restart, but things soon picked up. Dario Franchitti, who had started the race in 4th, got past Alex Zanardi, then started challenging Mark Blundell for 2nd. While Franchitti was thriving, Zanardi was struggling. His pace had cratered, with him being nearly 3 seconds slower than the leaders on lap 8 alone. Then Mark Blundell had a turn of pace, grabbing the race lead from his Brazilian teammate at the end of lap 9. Gugelmin was dropping back on pace massively at the top part of the track, with Franchitti catching up to Gugelmin, then going for the move on lap 11 with a commanding move down the inside of the kink. The top 3 were in their own zone at this stage, about 5 seconds clear of Michael Andretti in 4th. As we neared lap 15, a dry line began to form all around the track, and the first to try slicks was Michael Andretti. Unfortunately for him, he'd pick up a speeding penalty, but even more unfortunate for him was a spinning Canada corner that sent him into the gravel trap. With Andretti beached, the full course yellow would come out, but despite the reason for the yellow being obvious, the field would pit for slicks. Nobody regretted this decision more than Dario Franchitti, who dropped it out of turn 1 after coming out of the pits and hit the wall. It could have been the Scotsman's first win, but instead of elation, it was pure disappointment. After a pretty odd restart where Mauricio Gugelmin was caught napping and Alex Zanardi nearly hit him, an incident behind with Hiro Matsushita would bring the yellow back out. PJ Jones would also have a scuffle with Adrian Fernandez, with the American picking up suspension damage. The restart on lap 24 was quite hectic, with an incident between Jimmy Vasser and Parker Johnstone on lap 24, and a Brazilian pincer movement into turn 1 on lap 25. Raul Boesel lost it under braking into turn 1, spinning into Andre Ribeiro. The both of them would be out of the race, and the yellow would come out again. The two drivers didn't seem very upset with each other about the incident, and walked back to the paddock tightrope style on the concrete barrier. The next restart was finally clean, with Mark Blundell in the lead, and Alex Zanardi and Mauricio Gugelmin battling for 2nd. Besides Max Pappas going into low Earth orbit after contact with Boesel, on lap 30, the battle for the lead began to heat up with Alex Zanardi and Mark Blundell. They were certainly close, but they were still line of stern after a couple of laps. Another full course yellow came out on lap 34 after Greg Moore went for an overly opportunistic move into Canada corner, spinning and beaching himself in the gravel in the process. Shortly after this, the two front runners would file into the pits, with Zanardi and the Chip Ganassi crew taking the lead from Mark Blundell and the Pac West team. Even more chaos came around on the next restart, with Brian Herta and Scott Pruitt nearly coming together, and German Arndt Meyer somehow vaulting over the Armco barrier at the final corner. Back at the front, it was Zanardi in the lead and Blundell in 2nd, still very close. They were still just over a second apart when Mark Blundell's Mercedes engine let go on the back straightaway with just 3 laps to go. It was heartbreak for the Pac West team, as the chance at a double podium was now gone. Zanardi went unchallenged for the final 15 laps of the race, and would cross the line to score his 5th win of the 97 kart season. Mauricio Gugelmin would finish 2nd, and Gilles de Ferran in 3rd. With the trouble his rivals faced, Zanardi's championship lead would grow to 38 points, now with the chance to wrap up the title at the next race of the season in Vancouver. This race was a pretty interesting one to watch. It obviously had one group of drivers that were contenders all day long, but it wasn't boring by any means. Towards the end, there wasn't a whole lot to talk about, but the chaos throughout the earlier part of the race made up for it. There were also some funny moments too, like the weird incident for Art Meyer jumping the barrier, to Alex Zanardi eating donuts in victory lane after kart officials scolded him for doing donuts on track. This was a pretty cool race to watch as far as I'm concerned. I hope you found enjoyment out of it too. Thank you all for watching, and have a great afternoon.